ethics in its highest sense is what we ought to do. It's the kind of behavior that if everybody engaged in it, the world would be a much better place. On the other hand, it's important to understand that laws are what we must do, and if we step over the lines that divide lawful from unlawful behavior, there are consequences. And even though these are minimum standards, sometimes the standards are quite high in California. And so the point that I think all of you were making in your comments to the Bell situation is that just because something is legal doesn't mean that it's ethical or it meets your community standards. And so again, it's that two-part analysis. As you're thinking about what one ought to do in a given situation, it can be helpful to think of the values at stake in a particular ethical dilemma. It turns out that research from the Institute for Global Ethics, they're based in Maine, they interviewed Nobel Peace Prize laureates from all countries, all religions, all cultures, and they found that as a humanity, we all share kind of a common understanding of what we ought to do, about the kinds of values that make the world a better place. And those include the values of trustworthiness, loyalty, responsibility, and that includes the responsibility to do what's best for the public and that accountability notion. Respect, which gets to civility, something that sometimes is in the news, and then fairness. And a lot of the laws that we'll talk about have at their root some of these values, but as you're again looking at a given situation, it can be helpful to look to these values and think about which direction they point you in terms of resolving an ethical dilemma. Another set of questions that can be helpful to ask is what's best for the public that I'm supposed to serve as opposed to what's best for me. Another question to ask that can be useful, and some people call this the newspaper test, is how will this look? And that gets to that perception issue, which is you may know in your heart and your mind that what you're about to do is for the best reasons possible, and that's the important first part of the analysis. But the second part of the analysis is to ask, well, how's this going to look to the average member of the community who may not have all the information you have about your motivations and such? And so sometimes you may decide to or not to do something out of a concern of just how it will look. And we do have some resources, some pieces that ran in Western City Magazine and are available from our website that kind of talk through some of these issues. And it's also a recurring theme in our Everyday Ethics series. If you're interested in sort of thinking about some of these issues more or looking at those questions that you might ask if you're interested in hiring for ethics, we do have a piece on our website called Promoting Personal and Organizational Ethics. All of our materials are available to you 24/7 without charge. So if this is an issue of further interest to you, please feel encouraged to take advantage of our resources.